Okay, what do we have next? So next we're going to talk about another clinic volunteer. And I want to share, this is a really cool story about someone who had, to be real, clinic volunteer, one of the clinic volunteer of the year awards in the bag before we knew what was going to happen because of his work pre-COVID. And then when COVID hit, so he was a triage volunteer. We sent triage home for the first many months, and then he actually sent himself home to California. But that did not stop Zachary Nan from doing an incredible amount of work for community health. So Zach was always kind of one of the most engaged, curious triagers we had. He was almost ready to be a backup staff clinic coordinator by the time he left, because he was always back there with Sylvia learning how things work. And like, if clinic coordinator had to step away, we could trust him to just say, stand there until we get back. And because of all of his kind of curiosity and knowledge of the back end of things and how they work, when he was in California, he set up this whole system that I only know the like outsides of, with staff to basically, things went nuts. Everyone got sent offsite. All of our resident providers, who there's many of, were like sending notes to different people through different means of like, this patient needs this. And we didn't have our systems ready yet. We were just kind of figuring it out. So Zach said, let me take this off your plate, and created like a whole smart spreadsheet of how to collect this information to take that burden off of the staff. And I don't mean to say like, there's so much you can do for yourself, but everyone's been through it this year. And so when a volunteer steps up and says like, this seems like too much for the staff, how can I help? That was really meaningful and a completely new thing that we have never engaged a volunteer in. And he figured it out on his own and was proactive in offering that. So the amount of stress and time that he took off of staff, I can't overstate. And sadly, because he's in California, he's still on the clock. So Zach couldn't join us tonight, but he did send a little thank you video that we're gonna do a screen share quickly to share with you. And I wanted to make sure before we share it, to shout out all of the things he did, because he's way too humble in his acceptance, and only mentions his work in triage, which is like not even half of it. So Kate's gonna do a screen share for us so we can see our lovely Zach's face.
Hello to the wonderful staff, providers, and volunteers of community health. I want to first off say thank you to everyone for their hard work and dedication in providing care for patients during the COVID-19 pandemic. I spent this year as a triage volunteer, and though my time was cut short, I loved every second of it. Community health is truly a one-of-a-kind clinic and quickly became a significant part of my life. So much so that I decided to change my career path and become a primary care physician for the urban underserved communities. Thank you so much for this honor, and I hope to come back to the clinic soon.
So nice to see him. And I also want to say, like, this is such a common story, I think, and many of you heard me say, like, one of my favorite stories or things that happens is at community health is seeing people interact with us at various points throughout their training and healthcare career, and also hearing from you how your experience at community health guided those decisions. So Patricia just shared that, and you just heard it from Zach as well. That's really incredible, and something that we're so proud to have any tiny role in. And the other wonderful thing about it is that we know that you came up through our culture and community, so we know what kind of providers you're going to be. So Patricia, I know you didn't say this, but like, when you become a nurse, you're going to be a volunteer nurse at community health, and we know you're going to be an amazing nurse. So oh yeah, it's happening. I'll get Laura on it immediately. So I also want to just celebrate that. When I first started at community health, and I knew very little about kind of healthcare workforce, and we talked a lot about like, we want to focus more on primary care. We really want to be funneling more people into primary care because there's a lack and people want to go elsewhere. So hearing what Zach just said is also really amazing, because we didn't do something strategic to talk him into it. It's seeing the value of it, working with those providers, seeing what can happen when we address things and have preventative care and have competent care for underserved communities, is just, these people are going to keep going and going, and then raise the people behind them. So I love the legacy that our volunteers will push forward.